Okay, now that the epoxy's hardened on holder boulders heads, what I typically do is I'll do a minor scrape. The heads have already been surfaced, but this right here tells you how level if the tube protruded past, which you don't want to do, even though some grinding has to be done. I go in there, see I got a little X, look at that. Alright, so I know I'm going to have to do a little tapering, and I'm going to show you how I do it. But there's all kinds of overhang and different spots. And what I usually do to not disturb the valve job, because the valve job is perfect, I'll go in there with a wire brush and hit it. But let's go ahead and touch the part right here that on the tube where it was level, so that I know that I got it positioned correctly in the head, because this is very important, because no protrusion can come out. Alright, now I can take my finger and run across. Now I'm ready to do the tapering, because there's a bunch of epoxy that's hanging inside that tube. Alright, we'll get on back to that here in a minute. We're going to take a look. Now I've already turned the head upside around where I ziz-wheeled it. Let's take a look inside the ports. Wow! Now, I know that there's some people that probably say, well, they could do a lot neater job, but you know what? I'd rather pack extra and push the JB Weld Industrial Strength, because it's real thin. I even water it down to make sure it gets in all them crevices around the tube. So what if it takes a little bit of time to go in there and blend all of it out? And like I said, this is the reason I use the 4130, so it don't ding it up over them little thin brass ones. Basically, I just I'll hit it and like that and get as much epoxy as I can out of the bowl area. Now keep in mind that the valve job has been done. I'm not going to go back in there hardly and touch it. You don't need to. If you're wire brushing it, the wire brushing is not going to disturb it. I probably will real quick though, just for shits and giggles, go in here and document it and just kiss off on the lapping, just to make sure that I didn't disturb anything. But most of the time I don't ever do that or hurt that or destroy it. So like I said, I use the wire brush, and then the next step is to go in there with a carbide cutter, my finger tool, and take the bulk out, and then the final is the sand roll to blend it, in which I got to also work on this here. I'll show you how I do that, and that will be it for the tube installation process. Now on the top side here, and this is probably going to even have a little bit more overhang wherever there was. I go in here, let's zoom in. Okay, and I'm going to make a circle, because remember, it ain't going to leak at the top. The epoxy's in, so we can thin this out a little bit, and it makes starting to bolt a little easier. Usually what I do is I'll go in there and I have a spot facer. Right now I don't, it broke. And you come down and you hit that top. But I've got a way that I do this that does not interfere uneven with it. So Anyway, I just do that, and then I come back in here with a stone, and I just lightly touch the edge, and that's it. It's ready for the bolt to drop through, except one thing. Now we have to take the sand roll and run inside the tube to get all that epoxy out of it. So let's go ahead and take care of that part. You seen how when I push the tube through, okay, right through the epoxy, and which means it's going to collect on the inside, and usually it's quite a bit. It's hardened. So what I do is I take a sand roll and trim it down to where it'll just barely fit in there. See, look, you can see. And then I go around the edges. I kind of pull it out a little bit. Well, you'll have to go in here several times with a flashlight because it'll leave little deposits, and the flashlight you shine through the other end and get it up. Boom, I see one right there, and what I got to do is come up and hit it. Run out of juice. You just got to go in there like that and shine inside of it. One spot right there on the tippy top. Alright, now I know that right there's got it. Yep. Okay, so that's all you do. Now, you go back in here and check for overhang, and if you got it, then I got a little stone. I go in there and touch the outer edges. Now we're going to get ready to take the epoxy out of the ports in the head, which I'll show you how I do that using the die grinder. Using a carbide burr, and then polishing, because you don't want to get that carbide burr near the tube if you can avoid it. And we'll get all that out, and then it'll be time to fine tune the rest of the ports and get ready to assemble the heads and put them together. Okay. Now I usually switch to a dull burr, which I did. All you're doing is removing the epoxy up to the point where, you know, you get near the tube. You gotta be very careful, and then the other side. So all I'm doing is doing this. And of course, where there was water in there, remember I had told you I tried the JB Weld Quick first, and because it was thicker and better, it didn't get in the little crevices, so there's going to be rust in the ports, and usually there's going to be other stuff. Since this is the final port deal, I'm going to clean them up. And just, you know, this is so the customer can look at it and see it. You know, some people are into that cosmetic look of it, but anyway. All right. So that's the part where I go in there with the carbide, and then I'll have to turn it around on the other side and do the sand roll. Okay, now that I've cleared the epoxy on the tube, leveled it here, and I actually took this egg and barely kissed it right there so that it had a little chamfer, a little bevel, so that the head bolt can barely move around. I went in here with this grinder and got as close to that tube as I can, taking the epoxy off. Well, let me tell you what else that epoxy will do. That epoxy will fall from there and lay on the short turn radius right here. So that's the reason why I kind of saved most of it to the end to re-roll it, so that way I ain't got to do it 2 or 3 times, because there is a water jacket that runs right underneath here. Lord, I don't mind telling y'all, I call them the skeleton heads. These things here, when you start taking that kind of meat out of them, you have to be so careful. I've had my sonic checker in and out of the box no less than 20 times during the course of doing this. So what I'm going to show you right now, because there's probably some epoxy little pieces that dropped from the side and got off into it. I think I can get you a good view right here. Yeah, you can see the tube pretty clearly. I just go in there, and remember now, the valve job has been done, so I only try to come to the 60 angle. And it just pretty much, you know, make sure, I already see some there. I go in, always come from the top, keep the cutter speed low. Alright, then you take your finger. Man, what a roll. It don't take much to pull that ledge back, because I love the height. I love a tall, short turn and then a slow bend with no fillet behind the seat, and that's about what I got. And I barely go up and touch the 60 degree. I just barely roll over the top of it. Normally I've got the gray line and the bluing, and man, you know, for an old guy like me, 53, that helps the eyes. But I'll have to go back and do that later. That's where I had to wire brush the epoxy out of it. So basically all it does is it's a touchy-feely thing where there's nothing there, and make sure that there's no epoxy, and it looks like there's not a problem. That got it. So that's just it. Now I can visually look at it. It's ready now for the last part, which is the sand roll, which I can apply pressure, hit the sand roll, and this is the moment of truth, because what I'm looking for is to barely feel a little bit of that tube, and that tells me that I've done it right. If you've got a big bunch of tube exposed, then you have created an airflow hindrance. Now, it still increased a bunch of power, even if there's tube exposed, because you took it out to the max cross-sectional width over the short turn radius. But as a general rule, you just want a little bit coming out of it. I've done plenty of Hemi heads, you know, the Alan Johnson heads and stuff like that, and I mean, it almost looks like a third of the tube is exposed on 2 slots on them, if I'm thinking right. But man, they're after nothing but pure cross-sectional area and stuff. So anyway, that's it. Just want to show you that last burr. I'll touch the short turns, and I'm going to go in here and I'll show you the sand roll, and that completes the epoxy, the tubes, the beveling, everything that had to be done to assure you're not going to have no problems putting the head bolts in. Alright.